Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for coming back after break, and for any of you who are new to the Symposium Day, welcome. Thanks for being here and making the time for it. One of the hats that I wear, and as I said within YIGH, is as director of the Faculty Network Program. So I'm going to briefly introduce the Faculty Network Program. If you were at the Symposium a year ago, you probably heard a little bit about it then. I'll introduce our 4 amazing panelists, and then we'll have a conversation together. Hold on, I have a clicker in my pocket. Okay, actually, let me back up for a second. So just a bit of the story. So the Faculty Network Program at YIGH grew out of the efforts of a small group of us, which formed about 8 years ago as a group of junior faculty, and we were each developing our own body of work in the field of global non-communicable diseases. And we were committed to harnessing the power of collaboration, knowing that we would have greater impact through collaborating than by remaining in our own respective silos. And so soon after that, we formed ENGINE, or the Network for Global Non-Communicable Diseases. And that thereafter was followed by a few other networks, and then we've grown substantially in the past couple of years. So we define a faculty network as a group of Yale faculty members who coalesce to form long-term collaborative academic and/or research partnerships centered on a thematic or geographic area. And faculty in the network identify as members and share collective goals to forge new interdisciplinary collaborations to tackle some of the most intractable issues in global health. So we have currently 15 faculty networks spanning many issues. Most of them are thematically aligned. I'm not going to read all of them, but you can read as all the names on this slide. Most of them are thematically aligned. 2 are geographically aligned, the older one being Yale Uganda, and the newer one just launched last week, the Yale India Health Network. So as the titles of these networks come on the screen, if you are not yet a member and you're interested in exploring the space, or you know people on campus who are involved in that space who might be interested, take note, look at the YIGH Faculty Network website, come up to me after this. We're always happy to keep growing and supporting the program. I should say that at YIGH, we work directly with the faculty network leads. So each network has 1 to 3 leads to support and nurture these networks, and with other faculty who have ideas about developing new networks, as I just mentioned. We don't really have a strict blueprint by which all faculty networks must follow. So as we talk with the leads today, you'll get a sense that each of the groups is sort of in a different stage of development and has done different activities, and that is one of the things that makes it a really neat program. Before I introduce our speakers, I just need to do a shout out and thank you to Mike and Alyssa Cruz and Enoch Carter at YIGH, without whom the network program really wouldn't survive. We do a lot of work behind the scenes together, nurturing and supporting these networks in the group activities, food and drink, organizing rooms, updating the website, social media, things like that. So thank you to the 3 of you. All right. So we have 1 lead from each of 4 of our faculty networks. And I selected these 4 networks this year because all of them, I think, in different ways are building bridges and creating and sustaining partnerships on and off campus. And that's what we wanted to focus on this year. So representing BEGIN, and a lot of the acronyms networks have cool acronyms. Representing BEGIN, or the Yale Biological Embedding Global Research and Intervention Network, is Susie Rule. Second, I don't want to get titles wrong. So Susie is Senior Research Scientist at the Child Study Center and a co-lead along with Kieran O'Donnell and Linda Mays of BEGIN. And each of the networks we ask as they come on board to create a mission statement. And so I'll just read those for the 4 networks that we have represented today. So BEGIN seeks to better understand the biological embedding of adversity and mobilize this new knowledge to inform health policy. Next, representing Garner, or the Yale Global HIV/AIDS Research Network, is Jeffrey Wickersham, an associate professor of medicine in the AIDS program, co-lead along with Sheila Shenoy and Luke Davis. And Garner aims to bring together Yale faculty, researchers, and other partners to support global interdisciplinary research on the implementation of HIV prevention and treatment to end the HIV epidemic and elimination of HIV disparities. Representing the Yale Global Surgery Network is Melanie Sion, an assistant professor of surgery in general trauma and surgical critical care, who comes to us for a brief hour covered by colleagues from a trauma shift. So thank you to Melanie for being here with us. The Yale Global Melanie's co-lead is Dr. Adrian Sochi. The Yale Global Surgery Network aims to bring together Yale faculty in surgical and affiliated fields to improve health equity for people internationally through improved access to surgical care, education, research, and advocacy efforts. And last but not least, VBNZD, or the Yale Vector-Borne and Zoonotic Diseases Network, represented today by Brian Weiss, whose title I don't have. Brian is a senior research scientist at the School of Public Health at EMD. Thank you. And co-leads VBNZD with Chantal Vogels and Serap Aksoy. And this network brings together diverse faculty members involved in basic and translational research and public health practice to advance collaborative and interdisciplinary research to prevent the emergence and manage the control of these infections. So please come up with me to the stage and we'll have a conversation together. Okay, so thanks for being here. So we have three mics amongst the four of you. You have to learn to share. So as I was introducing the network program and each of your networks, I think we can get a sense that we're all very different. And so my first question is really to just sort of give the audience a flavor of how these networks come together. How do you generate interest and momentum among a diverse group of faculty partners? And just to share a little bit about your network. So some of the things I'm interested in here, or I hope our audience is interested in hearing about, without getting into too much detail, but when you meet, how often, what's the format, how do you come together as a group? What do you provide an opportunity for discussion about? How are these organized? What are you working on together currently? And what issues are at the forefront of your collaboration? So again, just not in too much detail, but just to give a flavor of each of the networks. So would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Jeremy. So Garner, the Global AIDS Research Network, which is co-led by my colleagues Sheila Shenoy and Luke Davis, as well as Dini Harsono from CIRA. Hi, Dini. Our network really wouldn't have been possible without the support of YIGH, as well as the investments made by CIRA and CIRA's leadership, so I want to really recognize that. Our network came together sort of with this hope of disseminating our network members' work, connecting members across campus, all the way across campus, Faculty of Arts and Sciences, all the way to medicine and nursing in West Haven, to bring together our common goals and our common missions to see how we can work together more effectively. We do monthly meetings, directly to your question. We meet monthly, our leadership team. We started in 2023, so we're still a young network, but we've galvanized from our CIRA network of faculty and other investigators. We're working mainly on opportunities to build up young new investigators and to open doors, provide connections to learn about funding processes. Some of the things we've been doing are NIH career development opportunities, where we've brought in established investigators to share their knowledge about what is a career development award and how can you benefit from that opportunity. We've also done similar sessions on diversity supplements. We have held sessions on the grant peer review process, removing the mystery from behind what happens in a study section meeting, so that early career scientists sort of can walk into that with a demystified window into it. So that's really what we are focusing on with our monthly meetings. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Susie?
I don't.
Flip the switch up.
Good. Biggest challenge of the day, right? First of all, Jeremy, I want to thank you and the whole team for putting together this amazing conference, which is giving us so much information and inspiration to be able to tackle the chaos that we're in here now. And I think that we're getting a lot of really good mileposts to help design our strategies for doing that. And I think that really speaks to the origin of Begin, co-chaired by Kieran O'Donnell, who's the researcher, Linda Mays, who is the clinician at the Child Study Center, and I'm the outlaw. I'm the lawyer epidemiologist who comes in and focuses on policy. And it started with the recognition that we wanted to focus on the child, beginning prenatal, and the caregiver, with mothers and fathers, and recognizing that individually and as a dyad, that these were fundamental components of a very healthy society. And it was the recognition that no matter what we do for the people, if we don't address the environment, then we're not going to ever get into the prevention mode and the resilience mode. So we have a concept called triple bottom line justice, and it's that you've got to look at the intersection of health and the environment and the economic conditions of the people. And that's what Begin is really all about. And so we came together with this recognition, actually starting over 4 years ago, when the politics were a little bit more favorable, but even then we knew there was a steep mountain to climb. And I think that effort over those first 4 years helped us take advantage of solutions, but it also taught us how to identify opportunities in the face of challenges. And so our design for our work is less of the standard regular meetings, but Kieran comes up with great names. He came up with Begin, but he calls it a dynamic response model, a good researcher. I call it's a strategic proactive planning model. So what we do is coalescing with a group of faculty across the schools, medicine, public health, law, environment, and most recently we brought in the Yale School of Divinity because they're people who care about people and what's happening to them in real time, in real place. And so we're all aware of things that are happening, and we're always constantly trying to figure out opportunities to make a victory, to make a win. And so with this dynamic response model, we are knowing what our arc is. We find some of those opportunities, and then we meet and coalesce around those opportunities, where we determine what are the assets we have that we bring to the table, the expertise, the experience, and then with my role is finding those policy opportunities to connect that expertise with those policy opportunities. And we've got a couple of exciting examples we can talk about later, but that's kind of an overview.
No, that's great. And I'll just flag how both of you and both of your networks have really done a nice job in extending yourselves across campus. And though the Institute for Global Health sort of is housed and funded by the health profession schools, one of our missions really is to be here for global health across campus. And I think, as we talk about building bridges and partnerships, I think you guys are doing a great job with that.
Hi, hi, thank you. Jeremy, thank you so much again for doing this, and for everyone, for this audience. It is definitely an important time to have a group like this come together and discuss our passion, because at the moment we feel threatened and scared, and I think that is the time when we all have to remember our values that brought us to this work to begin with, and remember that they are still critically important, despite what other people may say. We all know that, and so this is the time where we need to have this exact type of conversation. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. In global surgery, we actually have been sort of on the outskirts of the global health sort of playing field for a long time. And so being on those fringes has been something that surgery and surgeons have been working towards changing for a while. And so it's nice, it's been nice to have a groundswell for surgery over the last decade and have surgery become more important in terms of global health priorities for all of the major international entities that think about global health. And so coming to Yale, Similarly, it has been great to see a lot of new faculty and staff interested in global surgery over my time here, which has been about seven plus years now. Our faculty network has grown significantly in the last few years. We have a lot of young faculty, which is exciting, and the reality of our meetings is really trying to figure out how do we marry a procedural career with a career that oftentimes requires some level of travel and getting away from our home institution. So a lot of our discussions revolve around that and how we can advocate for ourselves in our various departments so that we can all grow. We meet about every other month, and topics typically surround sort of one person's work, and then we discuss struggles in general. So it's been rewarding, and I think like one of the most sort of like unifying aspects is how we respond to all of the learners at Yale from all of the different schools, and being inspired by them and responding to their needs.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Melanie.
All right, thank you. Jeremy, thank you very much for hosting this and for inviting me to speak. So my name is Brian Weiss. I'm a senior research scientist in epidemiology of microbial diseases, and I'm a vector biologist, and along with my other two faculty leads, Dr. Sarap Aksoy and Dr. Chantel Vogels, we decided, so we've been around a while, and we know about the breadth of vector biology and zoonotic disease research on campus, but it's been kind of fragmented. And we decided that this would be a good opportunity to coalesce the community and bring it together for collaborative purposes, really to help ourselves and help everybody else in the community and get ourselves some exposure. So we formed this network, the Vector Biology and Zoonotic Diseases Network, also in 2023. So we're kind of new also on campus, but it's been really great. We also have members from across the entire campus, from the School of Medicine, many in the School of Public Health, all the way over to molecular biology and chemistry. So we do a lot of diverse work, and it's been really great. So we meet about quarterly, our group, and our meetings are usually, we focus on one theme within our topic. So it could be like Lyme disease research or, tsetse fly symbiosis, whatever it may be. And we have a few people present, and then we open the room up for discussion, and we talk about those specific topics, but then we broaden it out to whatever anybody wants to talk about, really. So we're mostly, our group is mostly we don't have much clinical representation in our group. So a lot of our people are supported on soft money, and we need grants to do our wet bench work and field work. So we do try and talk a lot about grant opportunities and how we can work together on grants. And also sharing resources. So, that's been really helpful. If somebody needs a reagent, we reach out to the community and we ask for it. Usually somebody has it. If somebody needs a specimen, like whether it's the reproductive tract of a mosquito collected in Papua New Guinea or something.
Does anybody have one with them?
Well, somebody on campus probably does, actually. In that case, it would be Jeff Powell, probably. But so that's been really helpful for us. And we've also formed lots of great collaborations. And we do a lot of work on trying, like I said, developing grant opportunities. We're thinking about developing a training grant. Some of the members of our group already have a couple of training grants. We're big into kind of educating in countries, endemic countries where these diseases are most impactful. So, yeah.
No,
great.
thanks, Brian. That's great.
Yeah.
So a bit of a flavor of what these networks are and how they've come together and what you guys do. We're going to spend the bulk of the time talking about partnerships and collaboration, but I didn't know if there were any particular activities that each of your networks has hosted, big or small, little small triumphs are always important to talk about. So anything that any of you want to just flag and for the audience and talk about, particularly exciting or proud event that any of your networks have engaged with. Yeah, Susie.
Unless
go ahead.
anybody else wants to go. Oh, well, I'm really excited about what we call the New Beginnings Presidential Policy Platform. And Shankari Viva Kumar is helpful in that, my TF, and we're compiling this. But basically, our Begin network convened a meeting that also included the students that I teach in the School of Public Health on a climate equity and health policy course, along with faculty from the school of the Child Study Center. And this was before the election, and we wanted to capture some of the best practices, the promising practices that are coming out of all of the work that's being done at Yale within the faculty networks, not just limited to our faculty network. We reached out to Engine, we reached out to the ethics representation. And so we compiled these best practices, and we had a convening to do this. But we just didn't want to stop there. We decided to disseminate it. And through some work that I had done, we were able to get it to the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, which got it to the former president. We got it to the first and only and probably last White House federal environmental justice officer, got it to her. So we got these really good ideas on how to respond to maternal and child mental health and well-being. Well, then November 5th happened and things went dark, and I didn't think anything would happen. Well, then a couple weeks later, I get an email that says, well, we've been shopping your recommendations around. Someone at the National Security Administration pinged it and sent us to another department within HHS. And so then we start, between the election and the inauguration, we had a series of conversations, again, informing the programming, which actually focused on natural disasters, to be aware of some of these really cutting-edge methodologies. So that was good. Well, then the inauguration hit, more silence. Well, then I get another ping, and now what's happening is we've been briefing an interdepartmental group from like 16 different federal agencies on some very effective responses to natural disaster. And then the last piece, the cherry on top, was that they're going out into the field, and now they're telling programs such as Pasadena School District in California with the LA fires about some of these interventions. So what we did is we used the policy programming, the rule of law. We barreled under the firewall and connected with the careers, but it was an opportunity to have all of the brilliance of the faculty members being shared in real time, real place with real people who need it.
I love it. That's a hard one to follow.
Yes.
Well, I can describe a little more humble. I think that was a tough act to follow. So every year we host a vector-borne and zoonotic diseases like research symposium. We just had the third one last month, and we bring together all of our network members. We host it here, and this past year we had like 120 people register for the event. Most of them, I think, showed up, and it's been really great. So we invite like an external speaker who's very prominent in the field. This past year, we invited Dr. Photosynthesis from Johns Hopkins University, who studies malaria transmission. And then the rest of the group gives talks, and we collaborate, and we, catch up with each other. And it's been very popular within our group. Everybody looks forward to it as a great networking event and a way to kind of get their work out there. So it's been one of our prouder accomplishments.
Yeah, that's great, Brian. Actually, and a plug, if you're in the audience and you don't get the monthly YIGH Global Health Update, go to the website, sign up, because we try to include a spotlight, a faculty network spotlight each month. So that Shoa helps us write. Thank you, Shoa. But this month's Global Health Update, or in the faculty network spotlight, there's a story about the recent symposium. So those are great ways to keep abreast of what's going on.
And YIGH has been very supportive of that, so we appreciate that.
On a much smaller scale, but still, I'm happy about. Through the faculty network, I've been able to bring together this core faculty members that I otherwise necessarily wouldn't have necessarily met or really worked on a project with. And so next week we're hosting a hackathon in the evening one night with a couple of different schools around Yale, from the School of Biomedical Engineering and the School of Computer Science. And we have a group of interested faculty, and we're going to be playing a video of one of our collaborators, actually in East Africa in Malawi. She's going to describe a problem. We have various prompts we're going to go through, and a large number of students responded. So we're going to have prizes. And so I'm happy to have, faculty from so many different places come together and support this, and have students support it, or have so many students interested. And then it's clued me into a lot of things. Yale is such a robust university with so much going on. It's honestly hard to keep track of it all. So I'm thrilled to know about Sci-City and how their global health hackathon annually, and how we can get involved with that. And my partners in Malawi are thrilled. They're like, great, let's figure this out. And this is kind of also a free way to, it's not costing a lot of money for us to be able to potentially find a tangible solution to some of the issues that they face. So it's just a small win,
Great.
but we're thrilled.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. And it's lovely how, we'll talk more about the partnership piece, but how you're bringing your colleagues and collaborators into that. Awesome.
I'll make one quick plug for what we're particularly proud of in our work. And some of you may have seen yesterday in Nature, they published a review that they had done on 770 NIH grants that have been terminated so far that are known publicly. They analyzed the titles of those grants, and the number one focus of termination was HIV. 29%, almost 29% of terminated awards were focused on HIV/AIDS. Second category was trans health, followed by COVID and climate change. But I think coming on the heels of that, we already knew that, but now we have a little bit of data, a little bit of analysis to show that. And I think one of the things that we're proud of is our nimbleness, that we have been able to leverage what we already have here to react to this crisis. And that includes investing in our early career scientists through the programs that we are running at Garner, as well as our partnership, CIRA YIGH pilot grant funding calls that include both our local folks here as well as our international collaborators, to bring them together to continue the work that we are doing that is under assault. And I think that's one of the things that my colleagues in Garner would be most proud of.
Those are really excellent examples. So thank you all for sharing them. So let's pivot to focus on the partnership piece. I think what underlies the Faculty Network program is really about building and nurturing partnerships both on campus and then with collaborators internationally, domestically, locally. And so I'd love us to just have a conversation about, the current environment that we've spent the morning reflecting on, and how that has impacted and provided opportunity in the context of these partnerships, whether they're existing partnerships or ones that have yet to come together, and those can be domestic, international, whatnot, and they can be, as we talk, these can be partnerships of your own, right? Your own collaborations, or others that you know of within your network. So I'd love to maybe start us off there. Who wants to go first? Do I have to call on someone? Yeah, so just reflecting on existing partnerships that you might have, and thinking about how the current climate is, forcing us to either rethink, reshape. Yeah. Susie, do you want to go? Brian.
I feel like it's a little early to actually tell what's going to happen. Interestingly, I was in Uganda right when the new administration took office, and I was doing some field work with our collaborators there, and they were just gobsmacked by what was happening. They couldn't believe it, and I think so. They were hearing, as I was there, they were I'm staying at a hotel that's loaded with these USAID trucks, and they're all just sitting there now, and there's no more, just things were just dropping off right in front of their faces. And I don't know, I feel like it could be a problem for us, actually, because they, you know, ultimately they have to feed their families and they have to do what they have to do. And I just don't know how much of a priority our work is going to be for them anymore. And I worry about that because we've had these collaborations with them for many, many years. So, but I feel like it's a little early to tell at this point what exactly is going to happen. But, you know, hopefully we can keep it going as best we can. So, yeah.
Yeah, Susie.
My comment is interesting in responding to yours, and I do want to go back to your definition of global health and what's missing, because I think that definition clarifies an opportunity to help overcome the things that you were just talking about, and that is, I think, what was missing. And I love, Tim, that you brought up the relationship between health and the environment. But we have to start leveraging and focusing on the people and the place for practical reasons, for the impact, but also for political reasons. And a silver lining with the chaos that has ensued has really driven interest in the work that we're doing with triple bottom line justice, because people now are more interested in policy than ever. And for the first couple of years, I have to really beg and borrow people to come in and listen to me. And I annoy people because I want to talk about policy, and they're too busy saving the world and it's people to do that. But now they want to know, they want to understand how to navigate. So what's happening with our work with Begin, again, looking at the U.S. as part of the global work, and we were talking about this over break, the amazing work that all of y'all are doing on the front line of the healthcare work, not just for individuals and populations, but the systems, is urgently needed in this country, because my career has been spent working with environmental justice communities who are bearing the burden of pollution, disease, poverty, and crime. And the pollution is rampant, you know, the crime is rampant, everything in between. And we've made a lot of progress in dealing with the environmental side, but it is the gap on how do we help heal the people like we're trying to heal the environment. So this is a platform for all of us to come together to learn from the healthcare providers, but then the environmental side can help teach the healthcare providers on how to do some of this navigation. And just as an example, we were coming together to do a proof of concept with an application to Planetary Solutions, where the first phase is to bring in the excellent healthcare providers to share that information with the community members. Second phase is to teach the healthcare providers by the communities on how they've navigated these politics, because from the environmental justice lens, this is our routine life for the past hundreds of years. So even though it's been a big wave hitting us, the entire office that I worked with, 1/5 of the agency, is gone at EPA across several agencies, across several departments. All the work is gone, but we didn't skip a beat. We're still fighting the battle. So there's that bi-directional learning, which is so important, and which is what we're going to be doing with the collaboration we have. And thanks again to the Faculty Network for being supportive of that effort.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to speak more to what's happening in Bridgeport and what you.
Oh, sure.
I
Always
exciting.
love talking about Bridgeport. Yeah. The bottom line is they're in our own Yale's backyard that's often overlooked. The stepchild of New Haven is Bridgeport, of course. There was a 3-acre, 30-year-old landfill, waste disposal dump that was called Mount Trashmore. And we've gone in and we've worked with the community, starting with the environment, to convert that Mount Trashmore into Mount Growmore. And in lightning speed progress, in 3 years, we've raised almost $5 million to get the site remediated and prepared to do phase 1, which is a hydroponic farm to deal with the food insecurity. We have been struggling for over a year in developing the next phase, which is the wellness campus. And the community members know what they're suffering from, but they don't know what the solutions are. And they always say, we don't know what we don't know. And I get giddy when I hear about all the programming that all of y'all are doing, both in terms of the delivery, but also the systemic approach. So the Planetary Solutions proposal at Mount Gromore is to provide that opportunity to bring everyone together and do that cross-sharing. And again, turning that hydroponic farm, the Mount Trashmore to Mount Gromore hydroponic farm, wellness campus, and then wrapping around it as a learning center so that we can be sharing what we've learned with other communities around Connecticut and around the country.
Yeah, thanks, Susie. I think one of the exciting things about the network program is that, within each network, we see this as an opportunity to bridge individual silos and bring people working together, but then these opportunities that arise between networks, and this is a great example of that. So thanks. Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the partnership piece, and it doesn't have to be reflecting on current challenges, but maybe just describing, any of the ongoing partnerships within the network.
Absolutely. So one thing that we've started, I think it was last year, we tried to leverage existing activities and opportunities on campus that we could layer over our Garner activities. And one of them is our CIRA-sponsored International Visiting Fellows Program, where we bring, where CIRA members and also overlapping Garner Network members sponsor or nominate and propose to bring one of their collaborators from their international research sites to New Haven here for a couple of weeks and engage in all kinds of activities, including research planning, presentations. And we have tried to layer into that opportunities where Garner can come in. And what we did was we held one of our early career scientist events at that same time. So we could bridge and bring our collaborators from our international sites by Zoom, as well as those fellows who were physically here to grow and work more productively together in this space. And that was a very successful event that we had held. One thing we're trying to work more on is, in terms of our community partners, is bringing the knowledge that our partners both locally and internationally, so that we can reverse bring that knowledge that they have back here and apply it. And that's something sort of we just started talking about not too long ago, and it's one of our objectives for the future. So stay tuned for more on that partnership.
Great, thank you. Bring in the theme of reciprocal innovation, reciprocal thinking. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Mike, how are we on time? From the booth. 5 minutes. Okay. So let's take the last 5 minutes and open up the floor for discussion. If there are any questions, comments, feedback about what you've heard, things you want to add. If you're involved in another network and want to talk about activities there, great. Michael. Oh, Tim, please.
These all are incredible collaborations, and I've been at several universities, and they're all trying to do similar things that what you're doing, which is good. But I'm wondering if you can talk about how you're taking these internal collaborations and collaborating with other institutions across the country or the world.
So building on the theme of partnership development, anything that you want to talk about or that members in your network might be doing?
Well, I think that's a great idea. We haven't gotten to it yet, but I think that we've got some ideas. In fact, Tracy and I were just talking about doing some of the work in Southern Appalachia and bringing in some of the local universities there. So I think within the world that we're dealing with, there's the higher level research institutions, and then there's others that are more community-based. And so I think our focus would be to look at both of those. That would be great, especially HBCUs, minority serving institutions. I'd love it. Yay. Good. Will you be a member of our Begin?
Yeah, I guess I could add within the Network for Global Non-Communicable Diseases, a couple of us are looking at opportunities in rural Maine to partner between a large healthcare organization there and Yale, and leveraging, back to this theme of reciprocal innovation, leveraging our learnings from Sub-Saharan Africa on what works when we think about hypertension control and how we can make the most of what collectively we know. So that's just another example.
I think also the current environment is kind of forcing us to think more outside the box in terms of partnerships and who would be interested and supportive of this work. And so, I myself, always had this, thought of, and I would say most faculty members too would always look to NIH as ultimately where we would seek larger funding and grants. But that's completely changed now, and honestly opened my eyes to a number of different organizations that could have interest in this work that I don't know that I otherwise would have sought out. So, we'll see where it goes, but. In terms of, having more formalized relationships and collaborations, one thing that I think, that I've encouraged is for each of our different types of surgeons to participate more in their national meetings if they're not, and to try and join committees in the various organizations, because that's a great way for people to start to branch out on a more national or international basis. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Melanie. Michael?
Yes, thank you all very much. My question has to do with sort of the impact of calling yourselves something, assembling, sort of self-assembling. I know that Yale's a place where approaching someone with a sort of a credibility sometimes gives you sort of greater impact when you try to identify collaborators. I wonder if each of you could sort of talk about how just the act of coming together helped sort of motivate and give you sort of the courage or strength that comes from having partners with you to move to the next level to establish some of these initiatives. And it's selfish because I think that's a big part of YGH and the Faculty Network Initiative, right, is to sort of help people overcome sort of any anxiety or inertia that they might have.
Great. Jeff?
I will just say I was thinking about this very thing because Garner and this administration in DC has brought my colleagues, trainees, all the way up to senior faculty, back into the office. And we have connected in ways I think that we have not connected in the past. And having Garner as in our network to coalesce around certainly has been motivating for me personally. I'm so grateful for Deanie and Luke and Sheila, who also opened the door for me to be part of the network leadership. So the post-COVID world where we're working from home remotely, that certainly didn't help networking. But establishing the network, the fire that I feel under our feet from what's going on in DC, and the activism and that has yielded, I think, incredible strength and ultimately product at the end of the day. But also having Garner, the website alone, being able to point to the physical website, the leadership, the mission for our international partners. We get emails asking, for our international collaborators to join. Non-faculty have expressed interest in joining, and I know that we're leaving that kind of up to individual networks to navigate. But having a name behind it, faces behind it, I think it really does matter greatly, and those are some of the ways I've seen that unfold.
Well, and to build on that going externally, absolutely, it's the gravitas of Yale, and it's also the gravitas of all over the world examples, and where I think it's benefited us in our work, as Jeremy was saying, in the communities that we're working with, it gives the community members themselves a lot of street cred about having their concerns quantified about what their health problems are. And if you really look up the scale, we were able to get $1 million earmark from Congressman Himes for one part. So these community members may not have a lot of financial money in their back pockets, but they certainly have their lever on the high level elected officials. And I think that means it's bi-directional, that we're supporting them and getting what they need, but at the same time it takes that ivory towerishness off of Yale. So I think it's fabulous with the support that provides.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
I just...
sure. Oh, yeah, Melanie, why don't you go ahead and then... Oh, okay. All right, one final question. Yeah, Steve.
So having listened with much interest all morning, I'm wondering if we ought to be thinking in this time of how we've traditionally gone about being an academic individual researcher, where most of our funding would be investigator-initiated grants. We would write something, send it to NIH, and with occasional success, they'll shower us with a criminal amount of funds, and we go out and we try to do our thing. And a lot of us here have been pretty successful with that. That model just got pulled out from under us in almost instantly. But some of you have brought up the issue, and also earlier today, and then Tim also mentioned, what are we doing outside of our own work? The decision makers in public health globally are other institutions, ministries of health, higher level government organizations. I'm not sure the answer to this, but should we be refocusing some of our future plans on directing our background and experience to decision-making levels where there are also, as you just brought up in Bridgeport's New Mountain, the resources to make things happen? I don't have the right answer, but I thought maybe others might.
Thanks, Steve. Anyone who wants to answer that question, comment, and then we'll wrap up.
I would love to, but I've been talking too much. So, well, I think that's the biggest bingo I've heard all day, right? Because let's look at it. In the last administration, the largest bill ever passed was $1.4 trillion for infrastructure, and most of that money went to the red states. And that's why we are pushing this intersection of health and the environment with some of our programming, because that's where the money is. And there are even pathways right now in the federal government that will exist, which have funding associated with it, but it's not called public health. It's not called health, even though health is embedded in that decision making. So I have some ideas, but I need a lot smarter people to help me implement them. So let's talk.
Yeah, well, I do think that we're going to have a generation of people interested in policy in ways that we never have been before. Even in my own household, my 5 and 6-year-olds are like, well, they're breaking the rules. And they know political figures' names that when I was 5 and 6 years old would have had zero idea. So to think about when their brains are still developing, to start implanting this type of thinking is, I think, going to change a generation, especially the adolescents that we have, people in late teens. We'll see, I think, a very interesting growth in how the world is run in the next decade.
That's biological embedding, in a way.
That's great. And rule of law.
Great. So, any other final? Okay, so why don't we wrap? I think lunch, there's nothing between us and lunch right now. So I'll just say, so thank you all for listening, and it's really been a pleasure to be able to support and nurture your groups and get to know you guys and your partners. So thank you for being up here to spotlight that.